So I've received a number of messages from those who applied what we've been discussing in our Neville Goddard conversations successfully, restoring their breakups in personal and business life. Now, having done this through imagination, they also asked me, how do they make the manifested relationships ideally harmonious rather than appearing to fluctuate from loving to unloving? So this is what I'd like to discuss today. See, what they truly desire here is for their image of self to be a natural emanation of their higher self, to reflect ideally automatically as harmonious relationships. See, one may apply the law on the surface to imagine connecting back with someone they seem to be separated from. Yet having not released the separation-based beliefs between their concept of self and their true self, their relationships continue to appear as an unstable fluctuation between loving to unloving, reflecting the relationship with thyself. And what I mean by this is, on the temple of Apollo in Delphi, we see the inscription, "Know thyself." Now, one may look at this and think that they need to know thyself by seeking in the world that appears for how to know thyself. What know thyself is referring to specifically is that the self is beyond the world that appears through the five senses. The world that appears through the five senses is the world related through beliefs, some ideal, some not so much. The result thus of reflective consciousness. More on reflective consciousness in our last two discussions, which I'll link to in the description. Know thyself refers to the I beyond beliefs and form, pure consciousness, your true self. This I also has a true nature, which we're taught in the various scriptures of the world is love and fulfillment. And one does not need the scriptures of the world to prove this to themselves. They can come to this realization by inwardly contemplating the true nature of thyself. Upon contemplation of thyself beyond beliefs, you realize that the I does not know what it means to lack love as it is one with all. It does not know what it means to lack fulfillment as it is one with all and thus has all. Beliefs of lack of love and fulfillment thus only appear in mind and through mind via reflective consciousness result as the way relationships appear. So by not knowing thyself, one may, by conviction, believe themselves to be the beliefs that play out, even if it is not loving. This is untrue identification. Now granted, it is a belief held with conviction. Conviction meaning a firmly held belief or opinion, yet it is not true. And so by not knowing thyself, they unknowingly not allow the transformation of the self-image to be in accordance with acceptance of their true nature of thyself. So again, the self being referred to in the statement, know thyself, as contemplated by all who have realized the self, is unconditional love, happiness, and bliss. This childlike way of being is our natural way of being, and thus our natural way of being in relationship with others. So by knowing thyself, we no longer look around at the world that appears through the senses to determine what to imagine our relationships to be. We instead go within with the understanding that we already know, based on our true nature, what to imagine our relationships to be. By contemplating the true nature of self, the self-image is automatically transformed to be in accordance with acceptance of the true nature of self, and the relationships appear lovingly accordingly. So practically speaking, if we imagine them not appearing lovingly in relationships, acknowledge the one cause within, lovingly, with the one law, that is one with the one cause within. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So return to the beginning silence by acknowledging that the I is already still in silence. And by abiding as the I, you'll notice that the mind is calm, through which naturally the body is calm. Then from the silence, what emerges is the ideal inner speech of how you are ideally. You'll notice it to be from the premise of being love and fulfillment. And this knowing is precisely true by which you'll automatically impress that upon the subconscious mind as the way it is. Ephesians 5:1. Be ye therefore imitators of God as dear children. Also notice in John 1:1 how there is no separation between God and the Word, the source and the law through which the source appears. So if one does not know that the self is formless and that it lives by law, as in, you are life itself that lives by law, then one may keep identifying with certain beliefs in the subconscious mind, applying the same undesirable patterns of the not-so-ideal self-image of how they relate to life, such as meta-beliefs like, this is just how relationships work, even if they're not loving. That's just the way they work, which is not ultimately true. So in summary thus far, as we realize the self, and as we continue to also realize by contemplation the true nature of the self, it will automatically transform your self-image, which is a construct in mind, ideally, and play out automatically as ideal relationships with others. And consider this as well. In a relationship, although one may think that it is about the other, it is the true self we seek to realize with another. The ideal realizations thus then play out automatically as a continuously fulfilling, harmonious relationship with others. This ideally appears as healthy communication in relationships. Yet if the communication with one's true self is not ideal, it plays out as lack of healthy communication in relationships, which indicate two things. Number one, they are reflecting the contents of their mind. And number two, the only way for it to play out in an ideal way with another is through self-acceptance. And by that I mean specifically, acceptance of their true nature of self, which is love, happiness, and bliss. And to the degree that it is realized, it actualizes in the relationships with others. So that's another important characteristic of self. We intuitively seek to know thyself, the self being referred to beyond attributes. So you can realize the true nature of thyself upon contemplation as love, bliss, joy, and happiness, and actualize it thus upon realizing the true nature of yourself via authentic self-image. It happens ideally automatically by law, all by simply knowing thyself. So let's bring up my pyramid of life here and discuss this from the perspective of joyful, blissful, happiness-based relationships with others in personal or business life. So we've been discussing this pyramid over the last weeks. I recommend understanding it to a deeper degree, which will be helpful for this conversation as well. To do this, I'll link in the description to a number of videos for you, which you can watch after. So here on the top, we have I. When you refer to yourself as in I am this or I am that, when you say I, referring to self, the formless, unconditioned you, that is the I, which is the self. Then the second I is the same I as the first one, only segmented to symbolize who you imagine or believe yourself to be consciously. And the third eye here is not referring to the third eye chakra, but rather for this model, I'm referring to it as the actualized aspect of the self, or actualization of the true self, which was consciously imagined ideally of self, manifested into form, for example, in relation to our conversation today, as loving relationships. And from going within this I, here, what emerges from the heart of reality here, this big I, the eye of God, are the desires of the heart in the form of ideal inner speech of love and fulfillment, your true nature. By conscious practice of embodying the true nature of thyself, it plays out automatically as ideal harmonious relationships with others. This is done metaphysically by knowing thyself and realizing the true nature of thyself in imagination and allowing the true nature of thyself to actualize as loving outer expressions of life. I like how Neville Goddard said it once in his Mental Diets lecture. We must begin to take life consciously, for the solution of all problems lies just in this, The second man, the Lord from heaven in all of us, is trying to become self-conscious in the body, that he may be about his Father's business. What are his labors? To imitate his Father, to become master of the Word, master of his inner talking, that he may mold this world of ours into a likeness with the kingdom of love. So the Father being referred to is this big I here, the heart of reality. And there's no real separation between you and the Father. The Father is considered the keeper of the promises of the heart revealed in the silence here, which we desire to realize we already have our true nature in imagination here, to allow it to be actualized into form here. As Neville said, be about his Father's business, to imitate the Father and mold this world of ours into a likeness with the kingdom of love. So to prevent drifting from this truth, I do not perpetuate resistance in mind through separation-based beliefs between life, law, and love. If I did that, I would consider my concept of self to be in subconscious violation of manifesting my true nature via the law of life. I like how James Allen said it once, so poetically, in All These Things Added. The children of light who abide in the kingdom of heaven see the universe and all that it contains as the manifestation of one law, the law of love. They see love as the molding, sustaining, protecting, and perfecting power eminent in all things animate and inanimate. To them, love is not merely and only a rule of life. It is the law of life. It is life itself. So thus, the release of any separation-based beliefs between self, which is life, law, and love, is key when it comes to maintaining ideally harmonious relationships with others, because love is our and their true nature. As a matter of fact, at the absolute level of consciousness, all is one, and thus all is love. Ephesians 5:1. Be ye therefore imitators of God as dear children. As Neville also said in his Mental Diets lecture, every time we exercise our imagination lovingly on behalf of another, we are literally mediating God to that one. By the way, we also discussed mediating love to others in Sunday's video, which I'll link to in the description. See, we truly desire to imagine others lovingly and give no attention to anything that would not be considered to be loving. This happens automatically by knowing thyself and contemplating the true nature of thyself. This is also how you effortlessly transform your self-image, embody your higher self, be as you are. So I'm not suggesting being who you are not. I'm saying be who you are. Be as you are. This purifies the mind from the false beliefs in relation to others, and they appear in a loving way. Acknowledge at the absolute level, your being is their being. And by that it is meant there is no real separation or gap in consciousness. Thus only unconditional love, and they will appear that way. As James Allen also said in All These Things Added, the universe is preserved because love is at the heart of it. Love is the only preservative power. Whilst there is hatred in the heart of man, he imagines the law to be cruel. But when his heart is mellowed by compassion and love, he perceives that the law is infinite kindness. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, love, fulfillment, bliss is what I am. By accepting self, true self-acceptance of love, fulfillment, and bliss, others appear that way to reflect their true nature with me, which is love, fulfillment, and bliss. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.